Hi, my name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going through the second of 3 StoryGraph challenges. So the first one was the onboarding challenge, where there were 6 prompts that were based around utilizing StoryGraph's different features, and I went through what I was planning on reading for that one in my last video. The third challenge is the StoryGraph Reads the World challenge, which is based on 10 different countries and reading a book from each of those 10 different countries, and I will go through that challenge in my next video. And the second challenge is the StoryGraph genre challenge, which we will go through right now. The first prompt is contemporary or literary fiction with disability rep, and the book I have chosen for this is The Chance to Fly by Ali Stroker and Stacy Davidowits. And this is a middle grade about a young girl who loves musicals of all types like Les Mis and Hamilton, and ends up getting cast in the ensemble for her school's version of Wicked, but she has to overcome her fears about performing in her wheelchair in order to be a part of the production. I think this will be a very powerful story because it is own voices. The second prompt for this challenge is the nonfiction book about startup, and for this I have Bad Blood by John Carreyrou. This is a book about Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos startup. So essentially she had a technology that could take a single drop of blood and perform all of these laboratory tests instead of having an entire vial or set of vials of blood drawn for performing all of these tests. But it turned out this technology didn't actually work, and she convinced tons and tons of people, including a bunch of investors, that this technology did work, and managed to get $9 billion in investments into this company without people figuring out that she was swindling them and that the technology didn't actually work. The third prompt is a sapphic romance novel, and for this I have Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I have heard great things about this novel. It is based around 2 female characters. The first one is a photographer in New York who is coming back to town for her stepsister's wedding. The second one is a friend of that stepsister, and she is raising her daughter on her own in this small town, and the 2 of them cross unlikely paths. I mean, they've known each other for years and years and years, I think, but they haven't really known each other that well and been able to fall for one another, and I believe they do in the book. The fourth prompt is a biography about someone you don't know much about, and for this I have The Extraordinary Life of A.A. Milne by Nadia Cohen. I thought this would be a really interesting book since Winnie the Pooh is so famous, and I don't know hardly anything about the author other than the fact that he is also famous because he is the author of Winnie the Pooh. Furthermore, I have heard some really interesting things about the characters in Winnie the Pooh being representations of different mental health conditions. For example, Eeyore being depression. I've never read Winnie the Pooh all the way through, so I thought it would be really interesting to read Winnie the Pooh and then also read the biography of A.A. Milne at the same time that I'm reading Winnie the Pooh. It's also one of my goals for the year to read 3 different biographies during the course of the year, so this would be specifically biographies written by someone else about somebody's entire life rather than a memoir that is written by the individual themselves. The fifth prompt is a children's book you never read as a kid, and for this I have chosen Global Babies, and this is supposed to be a really fascinating picture book that features photos of babies from all different cultures. I'm also very interested in starting to collect a set of picture books that are more diverse in representation, in terms of LGBTQ representation and worldwide racial identity representation, country representation, and disability representation, and all of these different things, so that one day when I have kids, they see representation of all different types of people in their picture books. So this is a book that I am interested in looking at for that reason, and to see if it would someday be a great book for raising children. The sixth prompt is a popular science book, and for this I have The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This is a collection of essays about a whole bunch of different topics based on a podcast that John Green runs. The seventh prompt is a fantasy novel written by an author of color, and for this I have The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, which is the second book in the Poppy War trilogy. I won't describe what the second book is about other than that it is a sequel to the first book, and we'll go through what the first book is about. So essentially in the first book you follow Rin, who is a young war orphan living in a like marginalized community of this country. And she takes this test called the Keiju, and if you score high enough on this test, you can qualify to attend the different universities in the nation. And right in the very beginning, she ends up doing super well on this test and qualifying into Sinagard, which is the top military academy in this country. And nobody can understand how a young war orphan in this like specific province even managed to accomplish this. And then the story for the Poppy War follows her time at the school, and then after that, what happens to the nation as a whole after she is grown. And I believe she is like 25 by the end of the first book, and so then this picks up following that. The 8th prompt is a nonfiction history book about an LGBTQ issue or person. And for this, I was going to read Transgender History by Susan Stryker, which goes through a relatively comprehensive history of transgender individuals and transgender issues. I think it focuses mostly on America, but I'm not entirely sure. But it goes through their history, and I think so I'm really interested to read that. And I think one thing that will specifically be interesting about this is I've heard that transgender people were instrumental in a lot of the LGBTQ plus rights movements in general, and they often don't get credit for the amount of work that has gone into getting rights for LGBTQ people. And I think it's really good to focus on their history specifically. The 9th prompt is a horror or mystery written by a woman or a non-binary author, and for this I have The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is an iconic woman writer of mysteries, and she's a prolific writer. She has written so many books. At some point I would like to read all of the books that she has written, but right now I am going to focus on making it through And Then There Were None, which is one of her standalones, and then all of her Hercule Poirot novels, and this is the first of her Hercule Poirot novels, and so I am interested in reading it, not specifically because of the story itself, but because it is the first story to introduce Hercule Poirot as a detective, and I wanted to do Hercule Poirot before doing Mrs. Marple, her other main character, because I loved Murder on the Orient Express when I read it when I was younger, and so now I'm interested in reading that entire series, and there's no better place to start than the beginning. The 10th prompt is a travel memoir, and for this I'm reading Between Two Kingdoms by Salika Jaoud, and this is about her cancer diagnosis and journey, as well as a road trip that she takes, I believe after she is recovering from her cancer treatment. And she specifically goes and visits a bunch of people that she's been writing letters with since her cancer diagnosis, and that includes a prisoner and a young person who also has cancer, as well as a young mother grieving the loss of her son. And I think it just sounds really profound to hear about all of these different experiences and how these people's lives cross and intersect with one another, and how they make each other's lives better. If you are planning on doing the StoryGraph genre challenge this year, definitely comment down below what books you are planning on reading for it. If not, comment down below any book recommendations that these prompts makes you think of. I would love to get any suggestions for future reads to add to my TBR. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye!